go. I know.
Hey, Caney Springs, Jack here with Jonathan, our new worship director. And I know some of you are just kind of getting to know him, but one of the things you might not know about Jonathan is really, bro, the amazing situation that has brought you here. And every time something happens, I'm just amazed at what God is doing over and over and over and over. So I thought we should, take some time and tell people what's going on and how God brought you to this place. First off, how do you feel about Caney Springs
Oh,
so
loving
far?
it.
Yeah.
Loving it. Yeah, staying really busy. Really busy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Meeting lots of people. Going to Belize this week.
Going to Belize on Friday. So, yeah, 2 days.
So this whole story of you leaving Spokane and getting down here, there's so many different layers to that. So why don't you talk about the beginning? How did this start?
Well, really it started, we had a heart to be here in San Diego for years. I moved down here right out of high school. My family was from down here, extended family down here, and I loved it down here. But we grew up, my wife and I both, in Spokane, and so we spent way too long. We spent a huge chunk of our lives up there, almost all of our adult lives up there, really not loving it there and dreaming about the possibility of being able to come down here.
Okay, so take people who do not live in Spokane
through
what it's like living in Spokane.
It's small. It's a small town. Cold weather was always the biggest hindrance for Sandy because we get snow. It's a lot of people think Seattle, but we're more over by Idaho.
Okay,
and so over there, it's 4 seasons: really hot summers, really, really, really cold winters. I've told people in San Diego who trying to get them an idea of in the wintertime, you bundle up to go turn your car on to let it warm up while you sit in the house, then you come back out and hopefully it's thawed out before you go to work. I mean, just trudging through snow.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who's a comedian. He used to say, man, I don't want to live a place where I can go out to my mail and die.
Yeah, I don't know that's happened, but you feel like it every day in the winter. I mean, this last winter, I think it seemed like it was 8 months long.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's part of it. It's a good place to call home. It's a small community, but it's a different culture. It's a much slower pace.
Right.
And Sandy and I didn't really feel like we fit that pace very well.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. So the idea of I felt like God was leading me out of Spokane with the snow to San Diego. I mean, that sounds like, yes, I'm leaving Barstow. I feel like God's leading me out of Barstow to Maui.
Right.
But what's the God part in there? Because I know there's a whole lot more than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a lot to do with, just really feeling like there were not a lot of opportunities to do what we were called to do, especially full time.
Yeah.
We helped out with a lot of small churches and ministries, and we were just kind of, I don't have a lot of skills outside of a ministry context. Right out of high school, I started doing ministry, and so that's part of it as well, is that we jumped in and we were helping out, but we were barely putting food on the table.
Right.
And there just came a point this last winter where we're talking about it, and we're just like, man, if we could do anything, if we could just do that thing that's on our heart, what would we do? And it was very crystal clear. It's like I'd move to San Diego, I'd find somebody who needs help, who has a full-time opportunity to be able to do it.
Right. Okay, so let's kind of break this down. So that was in your heart.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about Monty.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine, Monty Kelsey, who's been my friend for years and years and years. Tell me about the conversation you had with Monty.
Yeah, well, Monty, I got a hold of him through the Slingshot Group, that organization that he runs, in last summer. And we just kind of interacted, and he says, man, I think there's people down here that I could connect you with. Kind of lost contact because we got really busy, moved from one house to another, started a new job. Things kind of just got overwhelming just doing life. And then Monty heard that I had really made a decision to be down here. I had led worship at another church it was an open door opportunity. They flew me down, and I led worship at their church and actually led worship singing with Monty's sister.
Okay, yeah.
And as we were looking for a church, and we knew right away that church wasn't the one that the Lord had for us. So as we flew home, we're just like, okay, what's the next plan? What's the next step? And we were home for, I think, maybe a day. when Monty called me up and he said, "Hey, I heard you want to be in San Diego," and that was kind of the connection to Canyon Springs, and that was you. Like he had told us about you guys, and so yeah, we just walked through that door with him, and
right. So I get this call. My worship leader says, he sits me on the office. He says, I think I need to go. Yeah. Now, I had always thought for years, man, I don't want him to go. He's so great. He's so talented. He says he's going to go. I call up Monty because it's always my first call because he knows worship leaders. And the first thing he says to me, I got this guy who's in Spokane who wants to be in San Diego. And I didn't want to jump to this thing of, wow, that's it. God just answered my prayer. But in my mind, I'm thinking, this could be a cool thing. Yeah.
That was when I got that call. It was, he told me the website, check it out, watch some sermons, get a feel for it.
And you love the sermons, right? Sermons were amazing.
Selling point. That was a selling point.
That's right.
It's funny because anytime there were a couple churches that we were talking to at that point. Only one with Monty. He was connected with you, but we were just kind of like, who out there needs help? And so that was the first thing I'd do is I'd go on the website, I would put on the sermons, and Sandy would be listening. She wouldn't be sitting in front of the computer. She'd just be listening and overhearing. And that was a big deal to her. She's like, I resonate with this. More so that one of the churches for sure. She's like, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Just feeling at home with it. So
we go through this process, and it seems like God's doing something, but I just don't want to jump into it because I want. There's all these people, and we have this whole big process we have to go through. Yeah. First process we jumped through is we did this video interview, right? FaceTime interview. Yeah. We got him on, and I don't know what you felt, but we felt like, wow, this is really a cool thing.
Yeah, I think it was you guys were in this room.
That's right.
And
yes.
And it was a cool connection, but at that time it was still like, do they want us? We liked you guys, and yet, you're staring at people through a screen.
That's right.
But there was just definitely this, like, man, it was not wanting to wrap our hearts into it.
Right.
Like, okay, we're just going to be real, put ourselves out there.
Because you didn't want me to break up with you.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so we didn't want,
Right.
I think that was up until we got back from our trip down here. That was just like, man, I want to be there.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing, but do I fit on their end? Do they fit?
Right. Yeah. So we went through you came down, we put you through. I think I was with you 14 hours. Like I haven't been with a person that long that I wasn't dating ever. And so we kind of hung out, and the team interviewed you, and we listened to all your references, talked for like 45 minutes. It was this whole big deal. It felt like God was doing something, and that was kind of a moment where God says He opened the door. Yeah. And we said, okay, let's do it. Now, since that time, since saying there have been some pretty cool things that have happened.
Yeah. So to get down here was a big thing in itself. The cost of living in Spokane is very low compared to San Diego, and so we had to make some decisions. We knew that going in, and the church has helped us out. But then also, just knowing like, wow, just to get into a house down here at Scripps Ranch is not going to be easy, and so we made a decision to sell a car. And it was one of the two cars that we had. One was worth something, and the other wasn't. So we sold the one that was worth something.
Right. And the other one you're driving.
And we're just like, and we're like, we'll figure it out when we get there. God will provide. I feel like He's calling us down here, and so we took that step. We sold the car, and even before we left Spokane, Paul called me up or texted me, and he said, "You guys need a car." Right after we had sold our car.
Right.
And my response just texted, I didn't know what was going on, so I just texted him back and said, yep. That was it, just yep. And apparently he was with some people that were just feeling that God was leading them to give us a car as they were looking to get another one, and instead of trading it in, they just wanted to give it to us, and that was just a complete blessing.
You sold your car to get down here. Before you get down here, somebody's got a car for you, which happened to be almost exactly the identical car that Kyle was driving when he had the job.
Yeah, and it's very, very similar to the car that we sold to get down here as well, which is kind of, we just laugh about it. I'm just like, wow, we couldn't even mess it up. you know.
Yeah, and the house situation was you can't rent a house
Right.
here. When you try to rent a house here in
Yeah.
Scripps, you're like one of 20 people.
Yeah.
And yet we threw it out to the church, and there's a guy, Anthony, who had a house
Mhm.
that he hadn't even moved out of yet, but
Yep.
says, hey, do you want to move into it?
Yep.
And boom.
Yeah, he hadn't even told his realtor, I don't think, yet. He had just, the timing, he knew the timing, but they hadn't put in their notice yet when he called me.
Yeah.
And he just said, hey, we're moving out about the same time you guys are coming down here. You should get your name in on it. And even the rental company, they had some rules that really should have made it difficult for us to get into it. And they bent some of those rules just to make it work for us, just to get us down here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in a great place, right in the community, 5 minutes away.
Yeah, I guess maybe the only downside is you're like 6 houses away
Yeah.
from me.
Yeah, but you have a pool, so my kids don't see that as a downside.
That's so great. So I just feel like God has just moved.
Mm-hmm.
And it's become very obvious to us that God
Yeah.
wants you here. And your family is great, and Sandy's involved.
Yeah.
And how are you guys feeling 1 month in?
It's blowing my mind, even still. I'm starting to feel like, okay, this is real life. Because in the beginning, it's just like, okay, am I dreaming? It really was that much. I mean, just some of the details of what I'm doing this is how I would spend my free time, is where I'm spending all my time now. So it's like little side passions and projects of videos that we're doing, and really music and working with the team. All that kind of stuff is just, that's the stuff that I went to work for at a job that I was terrible at, so that I could do it.
Yeah, right.
And to be able to do it with the time and energy that I'm able to do it now has been incredible.
You said even something about the equipment that we have.
Yeah.
Is equipment that has been on your list of
Yeah.
what you would want.
Yeah, we've just coming in, and some of the stuff that's been purchased before I ever got here is just stuff that, in my mind, I bought it years ago.
Right.
You know,
right.
Same microphones and cameras and some of the exact stuff that I've looked at.
Yeah.
Is like, wow, that's just coming into it, and it's kind of preset.
That's
where
so
I
great.
can learn how to use it now.
And what we're feeling at this point, 1 month in, it's just how easy it is to work with you, how fun you make going to work for us, and just the gifts that you use. You know, even on Sundays, I notice that you're willing to pass the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You're willing to use other people. It's not just about you. In
Yeah.
fact, I looked up on stage and Ashley was singing, and you just had this big grin on your face. And I thought, wow, that's what we want. We want somebody who isn't going to make it all about him, but is going to utilize other people.
Yeah. Well, I love the team. I mean, I've worked with small churches where we've had maybe one person who's any good at what they do, or two or three. I mean, we've had a few, but it's never been a full team where I could just lean on people and trust that they're going to do what they're doing better than I could do if I tried to do it.
Yeah.
And I've worked with good people, but not in the capacity that it is now, where there's a crew of people that I'm loving working with.
Yeah,
and
so good.
Yeah.
So good. Well, I'm sure people are probably tired of listening to us talk, but I just want to say one more thing, and that is, hey, this is Jonathan. He is available for lunch.
Yeah.
So take him out, get to know him. But this isn't just somebody that we put on stage. It seems super obvious that this is who God has chosen to be a part of Canyon Springs. And we're just glad you're here, bro.
Thanks.
All right, man.
Awesome.